When I started my first company back in 2011, Phillipe, my co-founder, and I pitched investors on this super clever idea that we had. We are gonna have our headquarters in New York City, but then we're gonna host our dev team in Costa Rica, where we are originally from. And I remember that this idea to host a remote dev team like that raised plenty of eyebrows. We didn't end up raising money for that company, not just because of that, but mistakes we made overall. But then fast forward a decade, and recruiting engineers outside of the US has become a standard for both small startups and for large businesses. Companies like Remote.com have raised hundreds of millions of dollars precisely because they bridged this gap to hire people remotely, made it easier and compliant. So it's a real option these days for many businesses. And even companies like Google are struggling to recruit developers in the US, oftentimes acquiring or at least acqui-hiring companies just because of their tech talent. So much so that in this case, even valuations are estimated based on the number of engineers that they're recruiting. About $1 million per engineer is a standard valuation these days. So in today's Startups 101 video, I want to talk about three things. First, recruiting developers at a pre-seed stage when you don't have a lot of money to afford them. Second, recruiting developers abroad or remotely. And last but not least, the delicate art of keeping an engineering team engaged. Okay, so let's start with the seed stage. According to Built-In, a full-stack engineer in New York City will be making almost $160,000 a year. In Silicon Valley, the average salary is closer to $200,000 a year, not including other benefits. These are massive, sexy, venture-backed companies hiring developers with that budget. And you can guarantee that the real good engineers are, for the most part, employed on terms that look more or less like that. So you could call bubble on plenty of things, on housing and on NFTs. Go watch our videos about that. But in this case, tech talent is not a bubble. It's an essential piece of pretty much any new company these days. And it's very evident that supply is not meeting demand. So obviously the price will go up. So if you have an idea and if you're looking to hire a developer to code this idea for you, what do? Of course, you raise some money to be able to compete with them, right? No. First of all, a great engineer already had an offer from a venture-backed company with an option pool. There are thousands of job openings just looking at AngelList, so why would they pick you? On the other hand, investors know how competitive this landscape is these days. If that tech talent is not on the team slide of your pitch deck, you are just a guy with an idea and no way to execute it. Nobody is going to fund that. So if you have a business idea, you are not looking to hire a developer. You are looking to recruit a co-founder, which is an entirely different conversation. It's absolutely not a come work for me talk. Instead, it's a let's work together talk. In that very scarce list of engineers, there's an even smaller, more niche group, engineers willing to quit their jobs to start a new business. That is the type that you're looking for. And trust me, founders with ideas can go on for years trying to find that persona. So my best recommendation is to start with people you know. There's a very, very good chance your future co-founder is someone you've known for years rather than a complete stranger. And that's why these startup hubs, Silicon Valley and New York, become so powerful because of that network effect. Another recommendation, as I said, is not positioning this conversation as, hey, you'll be developing my idea, but rather, I have a few ideas. What do you think? You know better than me on this. I acknowledge your expertise as an engineer, rather than just saying, hey, build what I tell you to build. If your idea is not getting traction, you may want to accept that that might not be a good idea. There was this fantastic Ask Reddit thread, Coders of Reddit, how do you politely refuse your friend's $1 million app idea? And I think it's worth a read. I'm just gonna link it in the description. One of my favorite funding stories here is a company called Peel, a company that my former co-founder Phillipe started a couple years back. So this was a business established by two engineers and a product manager who knew each other from their previous jobs. So they got together, they used their own savings and their own budget to build a prototype, an MVP, without hiring anybody, without raising money, and they had this smooth fundraising process afterwards. And I believe because of that combination, when three product people prefer doing this company than that $200,000 a job that they probably had, it speaks well about their chance of success, and investors can smell that. So let's talk about early and growth stage now. Assuming that you have a CTO, hopefully a co-founder, that you managed to ship a product and you managed to raise some money, you'll probably find yourself aggressively expanding your engineering team, and this time with some actual cash in the bank. So I'll start sharing my own experience, or our own experience at Slidebean doing this. Today, we have a team of 6 engineers, and they're all based out of Costa Rica. Since Slidebean is a US entity, we need them to be employed officially as remote workers directly by the US company so that the IP belongs to the US legal entity. We manage the logistics of that using a platform called remote.com, which helps us stay compliant with all of this. So Costa Rica is a country with a paid sick leave, maternity leave, and paid vacations, and I am all for this type of work. So we match the benefits for them even though they're contractors of the company. But remote.com also has this employer record service, which lets you put people on payroll pretty much in any country in the world without having to establish a legal entity there. So that part is one of the most annoying and complicated parts of operations, because honestly, a lot of companies just fear this because legislations are very different across the board. You want to stay compliant, and being compliant in different countries is a mess. But if you're hiring remote, you have to compete with the benefits that other companies are providing locally. So for an engineer in Latin America, for example, the benefits of working as a contractor for a foreign startup usually outweigh the benefits of being a payroll employee for a local company. Salaries are higher, even though they're not technically a salary, but a contractor compensation. Some companies make up for these benefits using other contractual clauses, but many countries have hefty fines if you're cut out of compliance, even if you don't have a company presence there. But remote.com has a lot of information to make sure that we are being compliant here, so we've honestly removed a headache by using them. Anyway, I want to talk a bit about remote teams, because my take here is that some positions like marketing benefit tremendously from being in the same place and in the same office, and remote work is never going to replace this. But for other teams like engineering, I think this is probably one of the most remote compatible organizations that you can build. Now, beyond the flexibility of remote work, and I want to talk about that in a future video, let me know if you want me to do that. Remember that most engineers are getting to pick where they work. When you have choices, the decision on where to work doesn't revolve around salary alone, but about how passionate you feel about the product, about the company culture, about how management functions at that company, and how creatively challenged with the work you are going to be. The reality is that many US companies are now looking to Latin America to recruit their tech talent, and more engineers in Latin America are experienced English speakers and happen to be in a very compatible time zone to pretty much anywhere in the US. Now, it's not as cheap as you might think. A full stack engineer, a full stack developer in Latin America could still cost you in the range of $100,000 a year, especially after accounting for the legal fees and the compliance costs. But that is still cheaper than the US. But enough blabbering about that. I sat with Phillipe the other day, we had a beer, and he told me a bit of his strategy as they recruit engineers for their team. And this is mixed with some of our own experience. First, always be recruiting. We always have job openings. If someone applies, we look at their profiles. If they show promise, we usually try and hire them for a small, maybe a paid consulting projects to assess their skills, but the job opening is always there. 2, we navigate our network. Jorge, one of our engineers, used to be our CTO's boss. 2 developers of our team are brothers-in-law, and one of them referred the other. So each hire inevitably translates into a new network of engineers, and as long as you provide an exciting place to work, that network will work. Number 3, we often do direct outreach. So we've mapped some companies that A, nurture good developers, and B, aren't particularly exciting places to work, and we sometimes reach out to recruit. And this has worked for us, but here are some of the other ideas that Phillipe gave me. Peel has been relying on recruiters to expand their team lately. I should note that while recruiters are very much extending their network outside of the US these days, full stack developers in Latin America are getting closer to 6-digit salaries in the last couple of years. Still, as an engineer, if you have worked at some kind of tech company, you will either have experienced recruiters reaching out to you, or you have worked with recruiters directly to help you build your team. So the standard rate for a recruiter, just for is about 20% of the annual salary of the hire, though many of them are willing to negotiate some special terms if your company is super early stage. Phillipe also mentioned looking out for newcomer startups in the hiring sector. For example, tools like Near, like Remote Women, like HireSuite and G2I have given them good leads on developers and are still undiscovered by the masses. Another case is my friend Phil Alves. He's from Dev Squads, and I'll talk about that in a sec, but he has a large dev team out of Brazil. So they put a lot of emphasis on being open about what the engineers will be working on, making sure that they work with new technologies so that their job itself is this learning experience. And the last thing that's honestly pretty obvious is just talk about it on your channels, on your website. Just have those posts there, your careers page visible about social media. We might go out and say that we are recruiting a new product manager for Slidebean with 4 years of experience working and managing products, a passion for working with startups and tools that help startups, flexibility to travel to New York City and to Costa Rica, and that we have a competitive salary and stock options, and that you can contact us at jobs@slidebean.com if you're interested. That's a true story. But anyway, recruiting goes hand in hand with retention. So I talked to Phil, who's the CEO of this company called Dev Squads. Essentially what they do is they build this little squad of a product team in Brazil that are made up of a product manager and a UX person and a couple of engineers. And companies in the US, from small to enterprise, super large companies, hire them and hire these small squads to work in specific product features. And when you're doing work like that, one of the biggest challenges over the past few years has been, of course, retention. Turnover, for example, as he was telling me, increased from 10% annually to 10% monthly last year, post-COVID. I was talking to this friend of mine the other day, recently raised money. He was trying to set up this team in Costa Rica, and he was struggling because the recruiters that they were using, they were going on budgets of 100, 120K for like a full stack engineer in Latin America. So is that real? Are you seeing that, or they just have a bad recruiter?
I think you can do a lot better. It's real. I'm seeing that. But I feel like if you're a startup and trying to build a product, you can still hire developers that are maybe not senior yet, but the mid-level great developer a lot cheaper. But you really have to be good at selling your vision and making sure these people are not going to put themselves in a situation where they're going to hate their job because they just have too many options.
The story I hear every day is, hey, I have this great idea. I just can't find a CTO. And my answer to them is, well, you have to put yourself in their heads where they're on 120K, 150K job in Latin America, which is a shit ton of money any way you see it. And they're not going to quit this to come work for you in your idea. Like they might quit this to go work for a company that they believe in, that they truly believe in, where they're a partner. How do you do that in the early stage, right? You have a CTO, so you have your first two engineers, they have some equity, they have some skin in the game. How do you recruit your engineer number 3 through number 5, where you probably don't have a lot of money and so you can't go nitpicking? Like, how do you recruit those 3, 4, 5 engineers?
I think that the number 1 and the number 2 guy, you just have to be very great mentors, so you can bring the other people. They have to see the people that you have as someone that they can learn from. I think after you take money out of the table, we really care about learning. Even paying well, sometimes you cannot bring these people. Sometimes there's no amount of money you can offer someone to come work for you if your team is broken, if they don't believe your idea. Many times we got people from very big companies, but what they were doing, they were just paying tech that they're not doing anything meaningful. They were not creating new features. And that's where you have to put people in, and you have to give them meaningful work.
For you as CEO, like, what do you have control of over this retention, over their environment? Is it more operational stuff, or do you actually get your hands directly into how they manage work at the technical level?
Yeah, it's definitely the CTO job, but I'm very involved in making sure like things are going well. And I think you bring a good point. Developers hate to work for organizations that don't understand their job. We had some people in the company that are not developers are like, look, you have to understand this. You have to understand their job. And working with people that understand what they're doing, it's what is going to do a lot of retention. You have to do a better job at understanding what kind of value they're bringing, and when they have some challenges, why they're having the challenges.
What role do benefits play? Like company benefits, I'm talking medical insurance, et cetera. How much of a role does that play? Because when you're hiring from the US to Latin America, you don't necessarily can do that, right? Because it's an outsourced developer, it's a contractor in a whole other country. How much weight does that play in retention?
It didn't used to, but now it does play a big role. And it's something that you might be able to use in your favor, competing against other companies that didn't figure out how to do it yet. Luckily today, there's a lot of companies that can help you with that. And here at Dev Squad, doesn't matter if they're in the United States or if they're in Brazil or other places in Latin America, where we hire them, we offer our key employees a lot of benefits. I'm talking health insurance, paid time off. The world is becoming smaller, and everything that the companies are offering here in the United States, it's going down for everyone down there.
Okay, so if you're still watching, it'd be great to hear some of your ideas. So let us know in the comments, what does your team do to keep you or your engineers happy? Once again, if you are worried about being compliant with all these different legislations, making sure that the IP is assigned correctly, being prepared for due diligence, and I could speak for hours on this, or you could just go and use remote.com. It's what we use, and they've also sponsored our video for today, and they've provided this special discount to our viewers. So you're gonna get your first employee for free for 12 months, and then 2 months free for any additional employees that you onboard on their first year. And you wanna get that by clicking the link in the description and using the promo code Slidebean. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.